Hey, this is Heidi.
And I'm Stefan, and you're listening to another episode of I Scream Parlor, the podcast.
That's right. This is the podcast where we watch scary movies, talk about them, and then usually go down a rabbit hole or two.
Yeah, it happens.
You went down a rabbit hole this week.
Yes, it did, on this episode.
Absolutely.
And maybe it was fitting because
it was Halloween.
Halloween just passed. Yeah.
That's right.
Yep. So
this week's movie is Halloween, in case you haven't guessed or, read description.
Yeah. So the original 1978 version.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. And before we get into that, let's just talk a little bit about what we've been up to, because it looks like we're in a different surrounding right now.
We moved into a new studio, which is great. That way we're not waking up my kids trying to podcast in the middle of the night.
Yeah. It's a little bit more private, no dogs snoring this time. And, I know, I like the vibe in here. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just moved and we're still getting moved in and settled, but it feels good.
Good.
Good job, team.
Yeah, exactly. All right. High fives. Yeah. And what better movie to start off this new episode with? Halloween. Yeah. So again, before we get into all that, though, everything else has been good with you? Anything new to report in on?
Well, I started that new job. It's been pretty cool. It's super corporate, more corporate than I was used to.
I know. You and the corporate gigs.
Well, the last gig was corporate, but we never had customer one-on-one interactions or any kind of anybody coming into our offices. So I sometimes would literally just go to work in pajamas and a blazer. And that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
But this one, it's like, I got to brush my hair every day. The fuck?
Yeah. Well, I mean, more power to you. I can't do it. I like to, I don't know. The corporate gigs are not my forte, but you already know that.
Corporate gigs feed my family. Yeah. And it actually feels really good. Like, I like this job, and I chose this job over the other one because this one had a lot more work that needed to be done. So I felt really good about it.
Okay, cool. I was gonna say I like the wall art.
You like my boys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I brought them in from my old living room. So now there's a big old hole that needs that needs to be filled. Maybe some other posters or something.
And who's that behind you over there?
I don't think you can see them.
Oh, you can't see him? Oh, you're blocking him. Oh, there he is, little Frankie back there. Yeah.
He doesn't like to watch.
He's shy.
Yeah, that's Frankie. I won him at Horror Nights.
Right, at Horror Nights. I know, I was there.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Maybe it was cheating because I used magic to win.
Whatever works, I guess.
Brujerías.
Whatever works. So how's
it been for you?
Well, again, pretty much the same, but I'm enjoying life. I like these new progress, these steps, the progress we're making here with the podcast. I like, I've been working on some more, video stuff. I don't know. My band isn't like performing and playing out right now. So I'm just trying to release some of the music and release some of the video stuff. So, do it yourself. I kind of, I don't know. I don't really, I like to try to hire out some of the work, but either A, it's expensive, or B, people just don't seem to do a great job. So I end up doing a lot of it myself. But other than that,
But you've got a lot of practice, and you've been able to do the videos on your own now because you didn't have to wait for somebody else to do it.
Yeah, that is true. Still difficult process, and I like to sometimes focus on creating the art more than having to
do the back end.
Yeah, the back end, polishing it up, making it all good.
People like me come in and take care of all the behind the scenes so that the people who are out there in front of the clients, the customers, the fans do your thing. I do the behind the scenes.
Right.
That's why I'm the get shit done person.
You definitely are. Yeah.
I can't be your operations manager though.
Please don't. Cool. So I mean, I guess that's sort of it on my end. I'm trying to think about if there's anything else that happened.
My brother was in town.
All right. That's right.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
It was pretty cool. We went to the Natural History Museum has this exhibit up until I think the end of this month. And it's like history of horror. And it was really cool, but it was only just one little room. It wasn't like a big to do, like they have the gem room or something like that. But it was pretty cool. And I felt that he was a little bit disappointed in it. So I took him to the Bearded Ladies Mystic Museum in Burbank afterwards.
Okay. What's that?
That was badass. It's like this oddity store, and they have a museum in the back. And they had
kind of like a Ripley's Believe It or Not type thing.
Kind of, but it's mostly a store.
Oh,
Ripley's is like you actually see oddities. Yeah. They had an exhibit that was the Evil Dead. And I got to take this really cool picture, like as the Evil Dead movie poster. That was pretty cool. Yeah, he dug it. And there was like this really cool bag that I want. It's red and it looks like kind of like a bowling bag, like like a bowling ball bag.
Right.
But it's like a red skull with two little handles. But it was like $65, and I'm not about to do that right now. But yeah, so
cool.
that was cool. Got to do that. Took the kids to do some VR stuff. Like I only see my parents when my brother's in town because
Gotcha.
He's the boy.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it was nice to see my dad.
Yeah, that's cool. That Ripley, we were talking about, the oddities or whatever. Ripley's always reminded me of Captain Spaulding's kind of his.
Yeah, kind of. It's
a little less mayhem, but still kind of some crazy creatures and stuff like that.
It's crazy as shit. Like if you actually go in there and read everything instead of just look at it, you're like, oh fuck. And you realize that back in those days when they were, like for example, like an old oddity, back in those days, those people were being fucked with the entire time. So it's not that far off from Captain Spaulding.
Yeah, yeah. And then, it was people believed what they saw back then. So if you could make it look like it existed, people would believe in it. You know what I mean? So I don't know how many of those things were true or if they were just like freaks of nature, which some are. But yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
That's cool.
So the movie this week is Halloween from 1978.
Yes. Now I'm sure both of us have seen this movie before. Right?
Plenty of times.
Okay.
Yes. However, because it sent you down a rabbit hole, I'm going to, step aside and let you take it.
Well, I got interested and I mean, I haven't really
You haven't prepared.
Yeah. I mean,
okay,
I just,
we'll just play it by ear then.
Right. I mean, like we haven't seen it in a while. So I did research kind of like the timeline of the different ones, and I wanted to see how it all kind of pieced together.
Full transparency, we watched this movie already in anticipation for this episode. We're not going to stop, go watch it, and come back.
Okay,
because this one.
Because that's why I was trying to say about the rabbit hole thing. Anyways, right, yeah. So I watched the first movie, and then I just kind of went on a deep dive into the whole Halloween saga, whatever you want to call it. And so
what was the last one you watched?
I mean, I've watched the most recent one.
Up to Rob Zombie, or you watched all the way to 2018?
No, I watched all the way to 2018, but I skipped a few. I didn't see it's just because either they weren't accessible easily or whatever, but I didn't see the H2O, the Resurrection, which we all know those weren't the best ones.
The Tyra Banks one?
Tyra Banks one is the Resurrection,
My chair is creaking.
I know. I thought you farted for a second. I was like, hopefully that didn't get picked up on camera. All right, stop. Do you want to switch chairs or what? It's going to be a whole ordeal if we do now.
Yeah, no, I think we're fine.
All right. Well, what I was going to say was...
you know I farted?
Yeah, I did. I skipped only those two in the middle. And I didn't see Halloween Part 2, Rob Zombie's remake version. And I also didn't get through his remake, but I did watch a little bit of it.
Did you watch?
I started with 1, I went to 2, then I saw 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I skipped over to 2018, and then I watched a little bit, the intro, about half of the movie of the Rob Zombie remake. So in watching some of them with you, I realized I hadn't watched all of the movies. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Season of the Witch.
Well, that one...
I know...
To be honest with you...
He's not in it.
Right.
And it's supposed to suck. But I haven't seen that one. And up until your rabbit hole, I hadn't seen The Curse... the Cult.
Yeah, that's the Curse one. Number 6. Yeah.
I didn't see that one. And I hadn't seen... Probably that's it. The one right before it either. Why are you making those faces?
I don't know. Just
They make me feel like there's somebody behind me.
Yeah. So we're talking about the first one.
So hold on. That means that I can fart, and you're gonna think it's the chair now.
Don't test it out. My nose is pretty good, so I'll be able to tell instantly. But yeah, so part one, that's where we're starting. The original, pretty much the best and only one that really probably should have existed. In reality, I think that the John Carpenter, the director, would also agree.
I didn't like the curse one because it means that there was incest and rape.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Well, there also was never like that wasn't. So John Carpenter, the director, from what I understand, he only really did the first one, and then he is that the right word?
He was contractually obligated.
Contractually obligated in a way, not necessarily, but he said he wasn't going to do number 2. He ended up doing number 2, and then I think he was on board with part of what number 3 would be, the Season of the Witch one, but not really. Oh, did that not taste good? Was that like some really crappy wine?
It's okay.
I'm sorry. You want some beer instead?
I'd rather have the crappy wine.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Right.
Because you're not used to, like, it's red. It's not supposed to be cold. So I'm just gonna.
There was other ones there. I should have just bought. To be honest with you, I was gonna buy a bottle, but I looked and they didn't have any.
That's okay.
Wine openers.
I'm just gonna put it in my lap and have my crotch warm it up.
Oh, because it's cold? Is that why it's weird?
I think so.
My beer's having the opposite effect because it was cold, but took us so long to get up and running here that it's sort of. And
we
don't
have
have
a mini fridge here.
Yeah, we do. I did check out the one that they. We'll get a better one.
You can get them at IKEA for $100.
Anyways, again, I don't want to go too far down in this intro part right here on the other movies because we're going to talk about number 1. But essentially what I remember seeing is that John Carpenter was somewhat involved in even part 3. And the whole idea of it being different was because I believe he wanted to do like an anthology of some sort, kind of like American Horror Story, where each Halloween didn't have to do with the one before it.
So is that why the Season of the Witch was that completely different?
Yeah, exactly. So that's exactly why.
I'm laughing at it's doing.
Is there maybe we should put like some sort of soft thing on her or something? It's gonna still make it.
I don't know.
All right, well,
I don't want to worry about it. Okay.
So the point of it is that he wanted to do something where each movie didn't have to necessarily be connected to the last. And so yeah, Season of the Witch has nothing to do with Michael Myers or what's Jamie Lynn Curtis? Laurie?
Laurie was.
Yeah, none of that.
So she was only in the first one and second one,
mm-hmm.
and then H2O, right? And Resurrection.
She was in H2O, Resurrection, and the 2018 Halloween.
Yeah, that one was badass.
Yeah.
Did we go see that in the movie theater?
We did.
Yes. I'm so good sometimes. Okay.
Yeah.
So Halloween 1978.
Mm-hmm.
It is a slasher film.
Mm-hmm. It's one
of the quintessential, like, classic slasher films.
Right. It's set up. So it wasn't the first because we obviously know.
It wasn't the first because we had
Texas
the
Chainsaw.
70s.
Mm-hmm.
The 70s was kind of the takeoff of the slasher films, but because before then it was the 60s, and the 60s was more of
zombies,
nature
stuff.
Attacks.
Right.
You know, you're saying zombie stuff because of Night of the Living Dead, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's more like, I want to say like The Birds.
Oh, right.
And The Thing and, whatever. And then
Have you ever seen The Thing?
No,
I haven't
yet.
seen that either.
Not yet. But then the 70s was more about slasher films. So that's how you got Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You got Halloween. You got a few others that are just very much classics. But what makes Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Halloween so good, or not so good, so outside of the box, is that they weren't fully developed characters that you had all this backstory on. They didn't have all of these reasons for doing all of this slashing. It was just these guys are fucked up. You better run, bitch.
Right.
And they did have the final girl, which is something that, is carried most of the movies from the 70s on. Final girl, right? It's a classic trope. But yeah, this was one of the first movies to really delve into that. And so that's what sets it apart. That's what makes it so great. Yeah. So it was directed by?
Yeah, John Carpenter.
John Carpenter. And he's done a few of our favorites anyway. But Halloween, of course, it's always going to be John Carpenter.
Yeah.
And it stars Donald Pleasance as Dr. Sam Loomis. And for those of you who don't know, Sam Loomis is the boyfriend of Marion Crane from Psycho.
Psycho, right. Yeah, there was that connection.
That's right. Psycho stars Janet Leigh, who is Jamie Lee Curtis's mother.
Yeah. And you know what? I totally didn't space that. First of all, I don't even know if I ever knew that fact. But now hearing it, it's like, oh, wow.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, she was, this was her first movie, or it was her first role, Jamie Lee Curtis.
So she got paid $8,000 for this film, which adjusting for inflation is like $30,000, which is still a good chunk of change for an 18-year-old?
Right. And for your first movie.
Yeah.
But again, coming from like Hollywood royalty, quote unquote. Yeah. I mean, both her mother and father were, I think, in the movie business.
Yeah.
Her
Mr. Curtis?
Yeah. I forgot his first name, but he was something.
She was great in this movie. And you know what? She has really great features. Like even the other girls in this movie, their features were so like, I don't know, you if you had them in a lineup, you'd pick Jamie Lee Curtis out as, oh, she's interesting. She has these really strong features and I dig it.
Yeah.
I think Laurie's hot.
You think so? Anyways.
Also stars Jamie Lee Curtis, and that is Laurie Strode and Tony Moran, who plays Michael Myers. But
he's not the only one, because there's like...
But here in this movie, he plays...
No, but again, he's not the only... Like, because they have like him as Michael Myers, meaning when the mask comes off. Spoiler alert. But the Shape is actually another guy named Nick Castle.
Because he's more like physically like intimidating.
And down my rabbit hole, I realized that in the 2018 last final chapter, quote unquote, Nick Castle, is that the name I just said? No. What was his name? Fuck, I just spaced.
Was it Nick Castle? The guy who did House on
No, that was something else. But what was the name I just said? I just spaced. Totally. Nick.
Let's see if I can find it for you.
I'm going to get it first.
I'm going to do my job.
No, I was
it is
right.
Nick Castle.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's the same guy who plays the Shape.
Well, Will Sandin plays him at age 6.
Right. I'm talking about in the 2018 version.
Really? He also played
Nick Castle reprising his role.
But however many years later?
Yeah.
I guess he would still have the stature.
He's not the only one. There's two guys, James Jude Courtney and Nick Castle, both played the Shape in the 2018 version, which, anyways, that was just a little tidbit that I happened to see while going down that rabbit hole.
All right. So,
yeah. But going back to the original.
Okay, let's focus on the original.
Yeah. Let's just focus. So, anyways, first of all, this is just the intro. So we're obviously going to take a quick break, even though we've already seen it, and we're going to come back. So do you want to do that now?
Yeah. Check out the trailer.
Yeah, check out the trailer.
We'll be right back.
Go watch the movie if you haven't seen it yet, and go ahead, say your famous line.
We'll be right back.
I'll say it for real.
We'll be right back. And we're back. All right, so...
Did you enjoy it? I mean, I know we've seen it. Did you enjoy it again?
Yes, I fucking love that movie. Although, a lot of it made me laugh because a lot of it is, well, that's irresponsible. Well, that's bullshit.
Yes.
Well, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, there's some hilarious things that happen in it. So we forgot to run over the synopsis and the intro.
So the
So let's go
synopsis
ahead.
is, and I wrote it down, 15 years after murdering his sister on Halloween night in 1963, Michael Myers escapes from a mental hospital and returns to the small town of Haddonfield, Illinois to kill again.
Yes. And
again and again and again.
Yes. Now, we also, synopsis-wise, so we could also mention that this movie originally, before it was titled Halloween, was called The Babysitter.
Oh, wait, I have notes.
Yeah, The Babysitter.
All
right? So tell me about it.
The story was based on an experience John Carpenter actually had when he was young. He visited a psych ward. And in the psych ward, he came across a child who gave him this look. And I quote, "A look of evil, and it terrified me."
Yeah, this is for real, John Carpenter.
In real life,
yeah.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So he had that experience, and he's like, I need to use that somewhere. And he did. And he found this movie from that. It was originally titled The Babysitter Murders, but due to budgetary constraints, instead of it being over 5 days, like originally planned, they decided condense it all into one night, make it Halloween night, and there you go. Halloween was born. Also, because of the budget, the cast had to buy their own clothes.
Yeah. Well, I find that a lot of the best movies and the best work comes from something like that, because I feel like it's a camaraderie. Like everybody knows they're not necessarily getting paid huge, but bigger the budget doesn't necessarily mean better the movie. In other words,
That's right.
It's all about using the tools you have and making the most out of it.
So it was actually shot in 20 days in 1978, in the spring of 1978.
Yeah,
and this movie came out like the Halloween week of 1978.
Yeah,
so that was pretty cool.
And it was not shot in Haddonfield, Illinois.
It was shot in a decrepit house in Pasadena. Pasadena, which is right. At? It's that way.
Yeah.
That way.
Yeah. I also happened to look up Haddonfield, Illinois, and come to find out there's no real Haddonfield, Illinois. There is a Haddonfield, New Jersey, which is where Deborah Hill, who is the...
so Deborah Hill co-wrote the screenplay for Halloween with John Carpenter.
Yes, who was also... They were dating as well, or maybe... I don't know if they were ever actually married. All right, I just research, I don't know if they were fully married or whatever. I didn't really care to remember that part of it, but they were a thing.
So their budget was signed off because who is the producer?
Oh, right. The producer? Yes. Mustafa Akkad.
Mustafa.
Yeah. Some people pronounce it Mustafa, like kind of like
Mufasa.
Mufasa, yeah. But I know that the proper pronunciation is Mustafa.
Mustafa.
Yeah. Akkad.
Mustafa Akkad was speaking with John Carpenter about a movie that he was making at that time that was like $300,000 a day.
Yes, and you know which movie this is. I'm just going to tell you because it's actually a classic movie, and I know a lot about it. It's a movie called The Message, which is actually based around the Crusades and the time of it's an Islamic movie. Basically, it's about Islam and the Prophet Muhammad, and it was a Hollywood style movie. So it starts.
So everybody was white,
sort of, yeah. But the thing is, the depiction of it was something where they kind of were delving into a historical time period, whether you want to believe in the religious ideologies or not.
That sounds cool as shit. I want to watch it,
yeah.
But when John Carpenter heard that, he's like, well, I can shoot this whole entire movie for that budget.
Right.
And Mustafa was like, all right, here. Mm-hmm. And he was the producer for all of the Halloween series up until
his death.
But
then his son or somebody else took over because the most recent one is still produced by, I think his name is Malik Akkad, which probably is his son, I'm assuming. Again, I dove into the pool. I didn't
do any research. You just watched all the movies.
Yeah, it was like I jumped in the water, but I wasn't trying to catch all the fish,
I don't want to swim when there's fish. That's creepy. Like you know how much I love the beach. Every summer I get like 6 shades darker because I love the beach.
Down by the beach.
Down by the beach. That's half baked for y'all. I didn't go to the beach for like 3 years because I was at the beach and a fish went by my foot. And I was like, nope, gross, disgusting. Nope, not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so 300,000. The movie made $47 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay, well, how much of that was made in the time of the release?
I have no idea. That's still fucking amazing.
Yeah, because I've also
and it was
heard
well received. And Roger Ebert
yes.
gave it a great review.
Yeah. He actually uses this movie to prove, like, I don't really give a shit about Roger Ebert and Siskel and all that.
It's just his name comes up every time you do classic movies.
Right.
And he does use it as kind of like the template or the cornerstone or
what he was trying to say, and his point is that there's a difference between just obscene and grotesque and something that's nicely done. And this one he considered to be a horror movie that was done in a way that was perfect. So it scared you. It used imagery and sound in the right way, but it wasn't excessive. Now, a lot of the movies I'm fans of in the horror genre are pretty excessive and pretty gory. And mind you, the remake that Rob Zombie did was exactly that. He went and pushed it into overdrive with some of the obscenities and horror parts. But I understand what they're saying. It was kind of, again, Hitchcock-like, where it was a lot of implied violence, not necessarily shown. Wasn't very bloody at all, also, like a lot of the remakes. But yeah, either way, Roger Ebert or whichever one it was he praised this movie a lot.
Yeah, well, it is really well done.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a lot of the implied violence. You don't see a lot of blood. You don't see a lot of guts.
Yeah.
And you don't see brutality, really. Like, even in the scene where he kills the dog, trigger warning, there's a dog death in this. Even in that scene, it's like feet. Like, that's all you see.
Mm-hmm.
And so it does very much prove, like, you can do all of those things and have it be like a grotesque movie in your mind, and have your mind take you there, versus all blood and guts. I mean, a blowtorch to the eye is great, but you can only watch that once. I mean, I've watched it multiple times, but you know what I mean.
Is that an Eli Roth movie you're talking about?
Of course, that's the love of my life.
You have like 5 loves of your lives. I mean,
I'm like a cat. 9 lives, right? I have slots for a few more.
Yeah, Eli Roth, Nick Cage.
Well, no, not Nick Cage. He's more like a side piece.
There's a few others I know you've mentioned. You just have to go back and listen to the other episodes to find out who Heidi was into at that time. Vincent Price. I mean, how many others? No.
Not Vincent. He's like
there's a few. There's a few others you've mentioned, though. Let's just be honest.
So, yeah, for sure. Specifically, Rob Zombie, probably.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course.
And Serge Tankian.
Really?
Maybe Corey Taylor.
Wait, those are rock stars. I haven't heard you mention that
Wayne
before.
Static. Wayne Static, yeah.
Yeah. God bless the dead. If you believe in God.
Pervert.
What is that perverted? I don't know.
I just like calling you a pervert.
Yeah, you like that word.
I do. I use it frequently because people are perverts, and there's no shying away from it as long as you're not harming anybody.
Yeah,
right?
But like epic, when you overuse it, it takes away from the meaning. So if everybody's a pervert, then like how many people are really perverts? Because most of them are
seriously,
not.
Everybody is a quote unquote pervert. Everybody has something that they do sexually or in a sexual manner that they would not tell anybody else because they're scared that it's not a societal norm. They won't ever share it.
I don't know if everybody's that way, but I think you might be right in the majority rules.
Aside from those that are very sexually repressed, which I'll bring up later in this
majority rules, I would say you're kind of right there. If you picked out 10 people out of a crowd, most of them are going to be not 100% honest.
Well, if you pick them out of my crowd, they're all going to be perverts.
Sure. But I think there's a few that are going to be totally honest that have no shame in hiding whatever the fuck they've. And nowadays, I think with the idea of podcasting and just in general, like people are, even social media and all that, people are way more open to like, be like, hey, I'm into this or I do this or whatever. And I don't know. There's kind of like these safe havens of places where people don't feel so ashamed to admit some of their like craziest kinks. But that's a whole nother topic. We're talking about Halloween 1978. And
all right. So I want you to explain something to me, Mr. Music.
okay.
The Halloween theme was written by John Carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fucking brilliant. But what does it mean when it says it's in a 5/4 time signature?
I will explain that.
Or is that what you kept trying to interrupt me about?
No, I want to, again, I went down a crazy rabbit hole here. So I will explain 5/4 time signature. But before we go that way, John Carpenter had to put some sort of a test screen together of this movie to see if he could get a backing behind it. So obviously it wasn't like full script, full actors and everything, whatever. But they must have done some sort of like scenes where they probably showed some scenes of Michael Myers or whatever to a investor. I think this might have been even before they got Mustafa Akkad on board. But
Mustafa, that's a nice name.
But
can I get a German Shepherd named Mustafa? Will that be like insulting?
I don't know. What if you named your dog Gandhi? I mean, I'm sure there's a Gandhi pet dog out there.
No. Well, so
he's skinny as fuck and he doesn't eat. Yo, Gandhi.
And sleeps with teenage girls in the nude.
Wait, Gandhi did that?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's India, Kama Sutra.
No.
I'm not trying to say that it's, yeah. I like to sip my beer.
That wasn't sipping. That's
slurping. All right. Anyways, one point, what I was going to tell you about the score is that he showed some investors the movie with no score, and they basically laughed it off and said, this shit ain't scary at all. So he said, you know what? I have to put creepy music behind it. Right. So he came up with a theme with another musical producer or something like that. Now, to explain 5/4 time signature, basically what that means is that there's 5 quarter note beats. You're vibing out, huh? Can you hear it in your head?
Yes.
You feel it? All right.
Well, the synth version for like part 4.
Oh no, they ruined it. Oh. No, it's so bad in the later ones. Even in part 2, they synthesized it so much and they made it so like gay. I'm sorry.
Like what? It's homosexual?
No, homosexual people, I don't consider that necessarily. Like when I say gay, I mean like something that's just lame.
So gay people are lame?
No, gay people are not lame. Gay people, homosexual people,
I know.
they're
You're
cool.
one of the most supportive people in my life.
I'm just saying that there's it's just lame. Like it's stupid sounding. They made it sound
Will you do me a favor though?
Yes.
And stop using gay in a derogatory sense?
I'll try.
At least tonight?
Yeah, sure. I'll try.
If you can commit for tonight, that's a step.
Sure.
All right.
Now,
so 5/4 time signature.
5/4 times. There's those 5 quarter note beats. So usually most standard rock and pop music is 4/4, meaning there's 4 beats into a measure. So the loop
kind of
would
like
be
a dollar.
Right, but like if you count music, you count the beats. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So in other words, 5/4 means there's 5 beats to the loop. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah,
okay.
so
awesome.
I don't know. It's
you're doing this thing and it's like rubbing your belly and patting your head.
yeah. So, but anyways, that's what it is. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that's not really a very common time signature. There's a few jazz songs like Dave Brubeck's Take 5, which is based around 5/4 time signature, and that song goes dun da 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 dun da 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 dun da 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 dun da.
Dun dun dun.
You're mixing it up, but there's a few others probably too. I can't remember too many off the top of my head, but 5/4 is not necessarily your most used or popular time signature. However, it works perfectly with this Halloween theme.
So is it because it just kind of leaves you uneasy? Because John Carpenter tried to make the movie uneasy throughout. For example...
Sorry, I was tapping the beat.
For example, he made Michael Myers in a way that you and I, as viewers, couldn't relate to him whatsoever.
That was
he didn't have a backstory. He didn't have all of this trauma that was identified in that movie, in that one movie. Do not talk to me about sequels.
No,
or
for
remakes.
Some reason, I relate to Michael Myers.
Of course you do. You're a fucking psychopath.
I mean, I totally get him, but whatever.
Also, in order to also add to the unease of the movie, they had scares like every 10 minutes so that it would be able to just kind of lull you into a false sense of security and then bam, right back at you. Mm-hmm. What are you adjusting?
I don't know. You peaked a little bit. So you see, you went totally red. So either, whatever. It's fine. We keep going.
Maybe my voice is on its period.
I don't know. We'll see. I'll fix it in post.
Right. Also, what I thought was really cool is the sound of the knife stabbing. It's just a watermelon.
Yeah.
I'm never going to eat watermelon the same way. I'm going to be like...
I'm never going to stab a person the same way and not think of watermelons.
And be hungry afterwards.
Yeah. I'm like, come on. It's watermelon. Now, this movie was fantastic. And we should... Do you want to start a little bit at the beginning and go into it, or?
Well, this movie was a shit, and just so you know, I went down my own rabbit hole, and I'll talk to you about that as we get there. So the movie starts like this. It is 1963. Mm-hmm. Michael Myers is 6 years old.
Yep.
And he is being babysat by
his sister.
And apparently, okay, no spoilers. Well, not yet. By his sister, and he is outside for some reason, just out in the dark, looking into his home while his sister is getting frisky with her boyfriend.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's Halloween night.
He's in a clown costume.
Maybe he wants to go trick-or-treating and nobody's taking him.
Maybe. Or maybe he went trick-or-treating and came back and saw his sister was being frisky.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? So the camera kind of follow it. Like you're seeing the movie... And it's like Michael Myers'
First
POV.
person, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like he sees his sister in the living room and then her and her boyfriend go up to the bedroom. But he's like looking at the lights turn on and he makes his way around the house and all of that. I timed it. It's like a minute and a half or something. So in that minute and a half, his sister and her boyfriend fucked and he got dressed and left.
The boyfriend.
Yeah. So, but by this time, in the time that it took for him to go from the front of the house to the back of the house to the kitchen to get a knife, the boyfriend left.
Right.
So it's like, oh, I see that. Yeah. Is that a teenage boy sexual experience?
I mean, I think, first of all, you got to understand the times because, and I know we're not going to go down the other movies, but Rob Zombie's remake of this, I think tried, and I know some people don't like the remake as much. Some people aren't fans of Rob Zombie style movies at all. Obviously, we have different opinions on that, and we tend to be pro-zombie in this camp. But what I am saying is that these little loopholes that we're talking about, Rob Zombie went ahead and tried to fill those gaps in a little bit. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. In this one, they fuck very quickly. The guy is gone, and we're just... moving forward.
So then Michael goes into his sister's room,
yep.
Stabs the fuck out of her.
Yep. Now we're watching it through the eye holes of his mask.
Because he's a clown.
First person, yeah.
Yeah. And so then he goes downstairs and his mom and dad drive up.
And his sister's like brushing her hair or something, right? In the mirror or something like that.
And she's like naked too.
Yeah, we got to have a little bit of nipples and titties in a slasher
But
flick.
in this case, she's like 14.
Is she?
She's like a kid.
No, I don't think so. I mean, let's say she's probably 17. She wasn't 17.
Like a Laurie Strode teenager when she looks like a woman. She looked like a kid. Well, I don't know. Anyway, so then Michael goes. Okay, did I tell you about this meme I saw? And
wait, the Mariah Carey meme?
No, that one was mean.
Oh.
But somebody sent me this meme and it said, what if Michael was actually Mycicle and Bicycle was actually Bicycle? I laughed so hard.
I don't understand it though. What the fuck is a bicycle and a bicycle?
I mean, it's Mike and bike. They're the same thing.
Mike and bike. So in other words, what if Mike was bicycle as in bicycle? And then what if bike was bicycle as in Michael? I get it now. Well,
I laughed so hard.
You're laughing fucking hard right now too.
I laughed so hard that day. I laughed so hard. I laughed so hard. I peed a little and cried a lot. It was great. It just tickled me. I have no idea why I laughed so hard. But now I call the guy at work Bicycle.
You do?
Yeah.
All right. Well, are you going to call him Bicycle Myers in this episode? No. I hope. Bicycle Myers.
Bicycle Myers.
Bicycle Byers. Would Bicycle Byers be like his cousin from like Alabama?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
All right. So back to the synopsis of the movie. Okay.
No. Okay. So
he kills his sister.
downstairs. Michael goes downstairs and his parents pull up and see him with a knife in his hand. Mm-hmm. And it kind of fades out. And then you hear for the first time. Dun, 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 dun.
Yes. Right? The wonderful soundtrack of this movie.
Okay.
So now
okay, so his sister was Judith. That's important.
Judith Myers. Yes. Now the opening of this movie, that whole intro sequence is fairly short and fairly quick. They pretty much just show you that there's no deeper backstory. You don't know anything else.
It's just that.
It's just that. Boom.
He was being babysat. She was fucking. Yeah. He killed her. His parents came home, and so then he was sent to the mental institution, right? And that is called Smith's Grove Sanitarium.
Yes. Now, most boys would not want to see their sister fucking at all. So
why did he look?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, he's a little bit psycho. I get that, but I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know. I don't know why he had a vendetta against her. He didn't like her.
You see what I'm doing?
Right. He should have closed up. But first of all, he didn't like his sister. That was the bottom line. Who knows if that was the tipping point, the boiling point, the tipping point. That's not a thing, is it? Is it?
So imagine there's a scale and at some point it gets tipped, right?
Well, my point is, who knows if that's what really set him over, off the edge or whatever, the whole seeing his sister.
Maybe
whatever.
She was like a cunt all the other days.
Yeah. I mean, sure. He probably fucking
she was by herself
her.
And he's like, fuck you, ho.
Yep. So again, Rob Zombie did a little bit of I think a justice on at least
not that I'm
digging into
anybody
those
who
things.
Takes ownership of their own body and does what they want to do with it.
No, right.
You can be a hoe and I love it. Please be a hoe.
Sure. I'm just saying that I think these little loopholes back then, they didn't need to clarify them all that much because it was a very early on type of thing where I think Zombie did a good job of at least trying to make a little bit more sense out of that. And I only know this because, again, I just recently watched half of the remake.
Right. So, yes, definitely. Rob Zombie's remake definitely added more to his backstory. You saw that there was physical and emotional abuse. Mm-hmm. There was bullying in school. There were all of these reasons that kind of brewed into what made Michael. However, we're talking about 1970.
Yeah. So now 15 years later,
under the care of Sam Loomis.
Yes.
Samuel Loomis.
So the
Michael Myers. Okay. So he's been there for 15 years.
Yes.
And there's going to be a transport. So
yeah, it starts off after the 15 years later with it's raining outside. Loomis and another nurse are driving to go actually pick him up or whatever.
Marion Chambers.
Right. So they're going to go pick him up and have this transfer go down.
Right. Because apparently, even though he's still going to remain incarcerated, Michael is going to have to go to a certain place to get like maybe another hearing denied and then sent back to Smith's Grove.
Yeah. So in this opening scene, this is where we understand that Loomis has been really taking care of him and also has a connection with Michael in a way.
Right. So they're pulling up and it's a stormy night. It's like Florida rain.
Yeah.
I can make that comparison now. It's like Florida rain. Like you can only see out your windshield, like not even past your headlights. And they pull up to the sanitarium and there is just patients out on the lawn.
Yeah.
And immediately Dr. Loomis is like, oh, fuck, he's escaping. And he tries to walk up. The nurse, at some point, she gets surprised by, excuse me, I burped. She gets surprised by the, like a patient that ran up on top of the car.
Yeah,
she
jumps
freaks
on
out.
the car.
She rolls out of her car because the car is like reaching in to try to grab her out. And apparently that's Michael Myers. He gets in the car when she rolls out of it and takes off.
Yeah.
He's escaped.
Yep.
He's on the run.
Yeah. Now, how someone who was committed at 6 learns how to drive a car perfectly is a little bit...
Especially without power steering.
Yeah, right.
Or
it's a little
assist,
bit whatever.
Or blind spot detection.
Sure, absolutely. But, this is 78, so
he's
let's
lucky it was an automatic.
Yeah, right. Right? The whole movie would be over if he had to drive stick.
Like, but one could argue that he's maybe he's just really smart in the things he wants to be smart in. He was really good at killing people.
Yeah.
So what if he just observed every time he had to go to one of these things, every time he had to go to testing? What if he observed how also his parents had cars, and up until 6 years old, he was able to see.
Right. But the thing is, even a 16, 17-year-old who's learning to drive for the first time is irky jerky all over the road.
That's because, check this out. They have impulse control and they have fear.
But he doesn't. So
he doesn't have fear. So he's like, all right, I'm going this way.
But what about that, like, one black kid that was like, he stole his grandmother's car. Remember on the internet? And he was like, I want to do some hood rat shit, whatever.
Did you see how far he went?
He was swerving all over the road and he banged into shit. So.
That's because he was also really small and probably couldn't see.
Okay, yeah. I mean, okay. Be honest with you. The story continues, and it's not like I'm not going to be mad that all of a sudden he's driving perfectly. I'm just saying it's kind of something.
And it's something that
about.
We brought up every time. We're like, right. Oh yeah, look, he knows to stop at a stop sign. Oh look, he knows to keep a specific distance away from the person he's following. Oh, he can perfectly park. I can't perfectly park.
In 78, this is the way they were thinking. They were like, you know what? People aren't going to get hung up on the details.
There were less cars.
Well, sure, yeah.
All right. But so him doing that in LA now, he wouldn't go 2 blocks. I
mean, they do somewhere at some point say that Haddonfield and Smith Grove Sanitarium are like fucking 100, 150 miles away or something like that, which apparently in one of the other Halloween. All right, we're not going down the rabbit hole. All right, anyways, let's go back to so he steals the car, he gets out of there, and then it's
back
Halloween
in Haddonfield.
Day.
It is October 31st, 1978.
Halloween Day.
It is Halloween morning. This is where we meet Laurie.
Yes, Laurie Strode.
Laurie Strode, who has been adopted by the Strodes, who are realtors. Mm-hmm. And they are selling the Myers' old home.
Right.
So the father is, yes, I know you're trying to interrupt me to tell me that we don't know that they're adopted yet, but shut up. I love you. Shut up.
Right.
So they're having trouble selling the home. But nevertheless, they send Laurie with the key to go put it under the mat so that somebody can come see the house because they still want to try to sell it. It's been 15 years. Maybe all the gross stigma of it has dissipated.
Yeah.
So we meet Laurie on her way to school, and she's singing this song. She's singing the song that I'll bring up later, the lyrics, but it's a song that Jamie Lee Curtis actually made up on the spot.
Yeah, her and John Carpenter actually, I think, for the movie ended up being credited with the writing of the song.
Right, but Jamie Lee Curtis just made it up.
I believe they might have used the same song in the 2018 one as well. But yeah, it was something that John Carpenter and Jamie Lee Curtis came up with.
So it's a song, it just says, it's more or less, it's, I wish you and I were together and close and alone. Something like that.
Something like that.
So anyway, she's singing that. Michael is already stalking her, like from a distance.
Yeah, he's already in the Myers house. Yeah,
because he's in the house, and he's like, "Who's this girl singing this song? Mm-hmm. Who's this boy?" So there's 2 people we're meeting, and Michael Myers already is aware of them. Mm-hmm. And essentially, there are 2 people that Michael Myers stalks in this movie. One is Laurie. The other is Tommy. But the theory is that he identifies with Tommy because Tommy is the age where he is developmentally and emotionally stunted. So the reason he doesn't hurt Tommy is because he identifies with him. He feels that's his peer. He feels that's his friend.
Gotcha.
So there are two people that he technically stalks. Anyway, so we find out that Laurie's going to babysit Tommy. We find out that it's going to be tonight. They're going to do all kinds of things, and they head to school.
Yeah. Well, Laurie sees him in the window.
No,
I believe.
she doesn't.
Yeah. So we
You mean
see
the front door?
No, we see Michael Myers inside the house, and then outside, he's watching Laurie walk away, and then Laurie sees him from the window as she turns around real quick or something. And
I don't remember that, but I could just be not remembering.
From what my notes,
That's
what
okay,
I wrote
continue.
down here is that Michael is watching her, and she kind of briefly glances around and sees him. But anyways, and then it moves on from there where
He stalks her throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
She sees him at school. She's looking out the window and she sees him there.
Yep.
She's walking home with her friends, Annie and Linda.
So one thing I would like to mention here, at this point in the movie, I was realizing that a lot of this movie is very similar to another movie we reviewed recently, which is Scream. Now, I understand that Scream came after.
But that was intentional. Scream
Yes.
was supposed
to be
a callback to
You're right.
lots of horror movies, specifically
this
Halloween.
one,
But
right.
why? Wes Carpenter.
Wes Carpenter. Yeah, no, Wes Craven.
That's what. No, right. But one of the jokes in the movie was that the Rose McGowan character calls. It's like, oh, is it a movie made by Wes Carpenter or something?
Right, yeah.
So that's why I said it. But yeah.
No, right. But so in my
supposed to
head,
be.
because we recently watched and reviewed Scream, I was like, hey, I realized the correlations real quickly. Like, for example, the heavy breathing on the phone when Laurie answers the telephone call, and it's really her friend, and she was like, oh, wait, I was chewing
eating.
or something. Yeah. And then there was another part a little bit later on where she was supposed to go to practice, and it was cheerleader practice or something, and they're supposed to call her, and Laurie goes to sleep and then wakes up later, and it's very similar to Neve
her
Campbell.
picking her up because she's going to drop her off at
yeah.
her babysitting gig. Okay, so we find out that Laurie and Annie are going to go babysit for Halloween some kids that live across the street from each other. So Laurie's going to get picked up later that night.
Yep. And so in this... very somewhere around here, there's a scene where they're both driving in the car together, smoking joints, yellow joints of all.
It was the 70s.
They had yellow joint papers. But so in this particular scene, two things happen. One,
we find out that Annie's dad is the sheriff.
Yes. Yep.
And that the hardware store was broken into, and they stole knives and masks or some other stuff. Yeah.
Masks. Now the mask. And rope. Yeah. Now the mask they stole. Are we to assume that that's the Michael Myers mask?
I don't know, but do you think he really stole a William Shatner mask and then spray painted himself?
Not out of a hardware store. And it's hard to believe that he even stole a mask out of a hardware store.
Maybe he didn't steal a mask. Maybe they just said ropes and knives.
No, they do say mask. For sure. Okay.
All right. I don't know. Well, it's a movie. It's conducive to...
Again, in 1978, they weren't really thinking. This was just a one-off to him, to John Carpenter at the time. He wasn't anticipating sequels and all this other stuff.
We also see that Dr. Loomis is now in Haddonfield.
Yes.
He had made his way to Haddonfield trying to track down Michael, and at some point saw where he ditched his sanitarium clothes and switched into coveralls because he killed a tow truck driver or something like that.
Right.
And he killed a tow truck driver and ditched the body in a haystack.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So we know a few things. Michael Myers is wearing mechanic's clothes.
Yeah.
He is armed and dangerous. And he is still driving around the...
it's like a station wagon.
Called? The Smiths Grove Sanitarium Station Wagon.
Right? Yeah. And he's been following Laurie and...
Michael has, yes.
Yeah. In that scene where they go to the hardware store.
He's driving behind them perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah. He knows exactly what to do when driving.
Well, okay, but forget about that part for a second. But when in that scene, it's very nonchalant. I would say. Like all of a sudden, Laurie and her friend Annie are like, "Peace out, Dad," or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And like as they're leaving, I think what's his name, Loomis is standing there, and just you just see a car drive by, and if you don't notice it or pay attention, you don't even realize that Michael's driving the car. But if you do, you're like, "Oh shit, Michael's driving the car."
Right. Right. Okay. So Loomis tells him about Michael. And he also tells him that, all the people are going to die and all this. He tells him as much backstory as he can.
Yes. Now, Loomis and the sheriff are going to go to the Myers house. Mm-hmm. When they get there, they find out that it's been occupied.
And that Judith Myers' tombstone is missing from her grave.
Right, yeah.
That's important.
That's very important, yes, because Michael has now created his own little shrine to his dead sister, which he murdered.
In the Myers'
in their house, right, yeah. But so Loomis is for sure at this point in time, he knows that Michael's come home.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so later that night, when Laurie finally gets picked up to go babysit Tommy Doyle, the little boy, and Annie goes and babysits Lindsay, who's like across the street.
Yeah.
And they're unaware that Michael has already followed them to the new homes, to Tommy and Lindsay's home.
Right.
Excuse me. And so they're just doing regular babysitter stuff. We find kind of the contrast. We find Annie is kind of like super irresponsible and she's not even babysitting the kid. The kid's just plopped on the TV. Whereas Laurie, while she lets Tommy watch TV, Laurie is also making sure that he has food, that she's interacting with him, and just kind of just fundamentals of being a good person.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, Tommy also happens to notice around this time that Michael is across the street.
Right. He calls him the boogeyman.
The boogeyman, yeah. Mm-hmm. And he tries to tell Laurie, but she doesn't believe him.
He doesn't exist because every time she goes out, he disappears. Mm-hmm. So it makes me think there are two things that Michael Myers never does. One, he never speaks. Two, he never runs. But how does he go from standing in front of somebody's house to not? Or does he just like disappear? No, he has to like book it.
He doesn't. Okay.
Does he really have that long of a stride that he takes 2 steps and he's completely
fucking pretty tall
down the block?
He's pretty tall. But I'll tell you this: there's some scenes where you can actually catch the actor just still moving out. Still moving away, and I feel like that's exactly the explanation for it because in that split second amount of time.
Your eye is not supposed to catch it.
Right. But if you really pay attention, you can see the corner of his leg and his foot like leaving the screen or whatever.
Fine. So at Lindsay's house, Lindsay is the little girl. She is Tommy's age.
The one that Annie is babysitting.
Yeah. So at that house, Annie's making plans to...
Brown chicken, brown cow.
With her boyfriend, Paul.
Yeah.
She's going to go pick him up at some point. But she also, she's making popcorn, but she spills butter on her shirt. So she gets naked and goes and washes her clothes. Yes. And from this moment on, she's just wearing a men's button-down shirt.
Yeah, which technically is a teenage boy's kind of like, fantasy situation. Oh, shit, I got butter on my shirt. I got to take all my clothes off.
Yeah, why does she have to wash her pants?
I don't know. But hey.
Weird. Anyway.
It makes for great viewing.
Whatever. But a few things happen. So Michael is stalking her throughout. Mm-hmm. And Michael is kind of like, you feel like he's going to attack her because the laundry room is like outside. Yeah.
Is that, that's like, not very common, is it?
Well, I don't know.
I mean, have you ever lived in a house where there's a laundromat that's not connected to your house? Oh, okay. Well, sorry.
I don't know how common that is, but yes.
I don't think it's that common. I mean, I understand like a disconnected garage, but a disconnected laundry room?
Well, I mean, I guess it makes sense if back then washer and dryers were loud.
Yeah, I guess.
Or louder than they are now.
I guess.
Anyway.
So a little bit of an inconvenience.
You think that he's going to kill her here and kill her there and kill her here. And she finally gets stuck inside the laundry room. She tries to crawl out the window. Lame. And Lindsay had to come out and rescue her.
Yeah. My foot is stuck in the what was it? It was like a shelf or something.
Yeah.
So lame.
And so anyway, she now has to go pick up her boyfriend, Paul. And so she ditches Lindsay over with Laurie. Mm-hmm. And she's obviously going to just go fuck around, right? Mm-hmm. At one point, when she's and so Laurie's fine. Lindsay's happy that she's going to go get to watch TV with Tommy, and Annie leaves. She decides to just take off and go pick up Paul.
Yeah.
However, she never leaves.
She never makes it. She
gets her throat sliced and diced in inside the garage.
Right, yeah. Because her dumbass goes to open the fucking car door. It doesn't open because it's locked. So she's like, oh, yeah, I forgot the fucking keys. And she's singing this stupid song about my Paul, I love you, Paul. She goes and gets the keys, comes back to the car.
You have a friend named Paul. I'm going to use that as a soundbite.
And she opens the car door, not thinking about the fact that it was just locked fucking 2 minutes ago.
Right.
And
she gets in the car, though. Mm-hmm. And then she's like, wait.
Oh, wait.
And then here comes Michael.
Yep.
He misicled her to death.
Yep. And this is technically kill number 1.
Kill number 2.
Oh, I'm sorry. Kill
3.
Number 2. Wait. Oh, shit. Hold on.
Judith, the tow truck driver, and now Annie.
Yeah. I was saying number 1 in the course of that new kill count from 15 years later.
The dog.
Okay, I wasn't counting the dog. If you count the guy he got the overalls from, and then human-wise, not the dog, it's technically kill number 2.
Okay, let's start kill count from Haddonfield.
It all took place in Haddonfield.
No, the tow truck driver was on his way.
Right, but Haddonfield could also mean 15 years ago. 1978. All right. The point is, it's the first person to die in this. Well, not except for
that we have a relationship with.
Right. Yeah. Sure. So Annie is dead. Now, on top of that, she is the daughter of the sheriff, but the sheriff has no clue yet. All right. So.
Anyway, back where Laurie is. Laurie, Tommy, and Lindsay are just hanging out and having a good time because she's really like one of those cool babysitters. Tommy
also noticed that Michael's carrying Annie's body inside.
Right. But Laurie says that he's just making things up.
Yeah.
But we then meet Linda and her boyfriend, Bob.
Yeah.
And this is where it pisses me off.
Well, what pissed you off about this scene?
All right. So they pull up in a Ford Sequestro.
I think I know exactly where you're going.
Yeah, they pull up in a kidnapper van and they're covered in beers and they're planning how to get Lindsay, the little girl who has to be like 8 years old.
Right.
They're trying to get the little girl distracted and one of them will go up to one of the bedrooms and then the other one will follow, right?
Yes.
But fucking pervert ass Bob, and I mean pervert in a negative way, goes, first I tear your clothes off, then you tear my clothes off, then we tear Lindsay's clothes off. And I'm like, what the fuck, pedophile?
Right?
You fucking rapist. And you and your fucking Linda with her fucking stupid hair. What are you, a fucking puppy? Ugh, fucking bitch.
Now, I think that was definitely something that wasn't thought through in this writing process. Like, I think...
Somebody wrote that. Okay. And then somebody somebody rehearsed those lines.
There's 2 scenarios
and then somebody said them on film. And then somebody edited it. And then millions of people watched it.
But exactly. Now, why did we notice it? Because we watched it again in 2019. But do you see how, like, when we heard it and we were like, whoa, wait, what the fuck did we just hear?
I made you rewind that fucker.
But no, I get it. But I'm saying, like, that's the thing. It was presented in such a way where it didn't even seem like it was like something that was that.
It was so
odd.
Nonchalant. So
But I don't think
was
that
a thing in the 70s?
If it was, then we're saying whoever wrote the movie, John Carpenter and his girl, whoever, Deborah Hill, whatever her name was, whoever wrote the screenplay is responsible for coming up with this idea that this joke about ripping a 8-year-old girl's clothes off was funny. But part of me thinks that they were so dumb that they didn't realize what they wrote at the time. And I think when we heard it, we were like,
what if? And the only way this is excusable is if the line actually said Annie and they accidentally said Lindsay.
Right, sure.
Right, which is when I heard the first time, I'm like, wait, did he just say Annie or Lindsay?
Or Lindsay, right.
Right. So I'm thinking Annie based on her friendship with the girls and her and her sexuality that we see and her openness to discuss it may have been okay with a threesome. And
sure.
that's okay. More power to you, girl. But if it's Lindsay, it's something completely different.
Absolutely. And you're right. Maybe this was a complete fluke and they just didn't catch it or feel like it was worth editing. But again, we're noticing it now because we definitely have a keen eye on things like this. And it's
just doesn't
totally
make
weird.
sense.
No,
so when I watch a
absolutely.
movie, especially for I Scream Parlor, when I watch a movie, I'm not just watching it, I'm absorbing it, and I listen to absolutely everything, which is why I was able to make fun of this movie a lot while watching it, because even you saw it, you're like, I would have never seen that. Like, even in Candyman, I'm like, she hasn't washed her hands.
Yeah, right.
So it's like, I absorb the movie, and maybe I'm watching it through different lenses than most people do.
Sure.
But that is something that fucking pissed me off. And then after that, I was like, Bob, I cannot wait for you to get your dick chopped off.
Sure. And I feel the same way. But it definitely was something that, first of all, let's just put it this way. Until watching the movie again, I never remembered or caught on to that fact in previous times. Like, I've seen the movie a lot of times, and many other times before, I never was like, wait a minute, he just said rip the little girl's clothes off. So in my head, I probably correlated Lindsay with Annie, like how you said.
Right.
But anyways, that was definitely weird. So whoever's responsible for that shit,
as fuck.
yeah,
Somebody fix that.
Whether it was John Carpenter or Deborah Hill or whoever the fuck.
I am hoping it was just an error.
Yes, I'm hoping it's an error too, because that was fucking weird.
It could have just been John Michael Graham said the incorrect name.
Oh, is that the Bob character's name? Yeah, exactly. It could have been
Bob Sims.
But then again, like you said, the director had to hear it, the editor had to hear it. There's reshoots, there's other things. So
you know how
everybody
I
was
have
like,
those two bulldogs at home, and it's an apartment, and we don't think it smells, but people come in and they're like, "Oh, you have dogs."
Well,
so because we've been nose blind.
That's usually the case with anybody who owns pets. Probably the same thing here.
I'm not saying that we're gross or nasty. I'm saying we go nose blind.
Sure.
And maybe blind? They just went, no.
Nose blind.
It's not about cocaine.
Snow blind.
No.
Nose blind.
No. I'm talking about maybe they just heard it so often that they just also were like, oh, fuck. Yeah, that's right. That must be right. He had one line.
Now, I did also happen to notice, too. Now, in this same part of the movie, Loomis is very much acting like a fucking weirdo creep.
Oh, he's being a fucking creep.
I mean, seriously a creep.
Because Loomis knows, shit, there's the Myers house. Let's go in. Finds that, did he find the tombstone in there?
Well, he found it in there when he went in there with the sheriff. That was.
So he decides, fuck, Michael's coming back. I'm going to wait for him right here.
Yeah.
Unaware that he is out there terrorizing the town already, he thinks he's going to wait there. So anytime kids come up, he scares them off.
Yeah, but this is an old man in a trench coat.
It's an old man in a trench coat.
Hiding behind
bushes telling kids, but making voices at them. Because he's not like, get out of here, kids. He's like, hey, you kids.
Yeah.
I'm going to get you.
And then he actually laughs, but he's like, like, haha. But do you see how, like, in a way, today, that would look so creepy and perverted for an old man?
That was creepy and perverted back then.
Right, but they wrote it in the script as if, like, they didn't realize how weird of a scenario that was.
I think it was supposed to be a moment of levity.
Okay.
Right? Because everything was so intense up until that point. So
let's go back to the boyfriend, the girlfriend, which is Lindsay. Is it Lindsay? No, Linda.
Linda and Bob are fucking upstairs.
In the Myers house. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No. In Lindsay's house, which Annie is supposed to be babysitting.
Right. But while they were messing around on the couch, Laurie calls to see if they knew what time Annie was getting there, because she needed to know what time to put Lindsay to bed. Right. And they're like, shit, she's gone. So they go upstairs to fuck. So after they fuck, Bob goes downstairs to get a beer for Lindsay. And Lindsay is just smoking a cigarette in her bed, or in the bed that they're in. That's when Bob meets Michael. Mm-hmm. Right? And what does Michael do to him? He lifts him up off of the floor and stabs him right in his in his gut or in his chest.
A little bit high. I think it's
in
chest,
his torso
like
somewhere.
The sternum.
But so hard with this knife that it keeps him up off the ground. Yeah. However, the knife's isn't
not
that
really
big.
That long, right?
But anyway, it was good, because that's when I was like, that's what you fucking get, Bob.
Yeah. Now, in that, right before that happened, also, there's a fucking jack-o'-lantern in the bedroom where they were fucking, which is very odd. Like, why have a jack-o'-lantern in the bedroom?
I don't know, but I think it's because they had such a hard time finding jack-o'-lanterns to make this film because it was made in the spring in California. They had to buy leaves and paint them.
Yeah, right.
And they had a hard time finding these pumpkins.
Well, I noticed, so I just realized too that in the course of the movie right now, we don't know that the headstone of Judas Myers is there yet because it technically comes in later in the movie.
That's fine.
But in that scene, when we see the headstone, we also significantly also see that there's a jack-o'-lantern in the bedroom. So I think Michael is the one who put the jack-o'-lantern in the bedroom.
That's a good theory. I hadn't thought about that. I actually didn't pay attention to the jack-o'-lanterns.
Now, so he does this infamous kill scene, which is probably one of the most significant scenes in the movie because he does that head tilt nod that he does right after he stabs Bob into the
every 90s bass player,
like a dog that's like not understanding. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So then he goes upstairs and he's dressed up in this ghost, like just a sheet, and he's wearing Bob's glasses.
Now, I have something to say about this. Now, first of all, let's just, the kill count is very low. This Bob guy was technically two or three, depending on if you want to count the guy who he got the uniform from. But apart from that, does Michael Myers have a sense of humor? Because why put the glasses and why pretend to be Bob?
Remember, he's like emotionally stunted. He's like a 8-year-old boy at this point?
Sure. But I mean, do you get what I'm saying? Like, he's already just killed Bob. He could go kill the girl. He could just walk in the room and just scare the shit out and kill her.
He's also wearing a mask.
Absolutely.
And he enjoys that. So
but by
maybe
putting on the other, because he didn't just put on a white cloth, he put on Bob's glasses as to throw off what's her name, Linda? Like, he basically was pretending to be Bob.
That he does that a lot. He makes noises over here when he's really over here.
But putting on the glasses is like a really detailed.
Maybe he has a sense of humor.
I think
I'm not saying he doesn't.
I think he does. I think this is his way of goofing around inside. I think out of all of the kills and out of all of the scenes, I think Michael was laughing about this one. He's like, I'm going to put this thing on. I'm going to put the glasses on. I'm going to pretend to be the boyfriend.
Michael snickering or giggling.
I know. But I think that technically this shows his humorous side. I really feel like that this is a human side of him because we only see the evil. And I feel like that this kill or him pretending to throw her off.
He's very much a real person.
Yeah.
Like, he even eats, as we saw, because he killed a possum or a rat. I don't know where he would have pooped, though.
Well, that's a little too many details.
So, anyways,
but
he kills Linda.
Yeah, he kills her, but he also plays with her first because, again, she doesn't realize that it's not Bob.
Okay, he kills her like this, and it's actually a really good kill scene, not just because I think Linda's stupid. She gets frustrated at the fact that he's fucking with her because he is very much fucking with her. Like, he won't interact with her and she's thinking that he's Bob. So she gets pissed off and she goes and she picks up the phone and is calling Laurie.
Laurie, yep.
But when she's trying to tell, so before she's able to talk to Laurie, Michael comes and starts strangling her with the cord of the phone. And Laurie thinks that they called while fucking. Because she's just...
Yeah. And they're always bugging Laurie because I think Laurie's a virgin, maybe. She hasn't had sex yet.
Even if she's not a virgin, she's very much the prude of the bunch.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. Because she's the good girl. She's covered up. She's whatever. Right. And I have a theory on that. Or actually, there is a theory on that. And kills her.
Okay. So, yes, he kills her. And then he picks up the phone and he hears Laurie's voice. I don't know if that's significant or not. I don't know if he remembers now that that's his sister or not. They don't go into detail on that, but he does hear her voice. Meanwhile,
Dr. Loomis had started walking away from the house because he was being a pervert.
Yeah, he's a jackass standing outside the fucking house the whole time.
So he's walking down the street and he finds the Smith's Grove
the abandoned car. Right.
And he's like, fuck, he is close. So he's fucking excited.
Yeah.
Laurie has already put the kids to bed at Tommy's house and is worried because that call was cause for concern.
Yes, she wants to go investigate.
Does what? She grabs the keys, something Annie never did. She didn't even lock up the house that she was working at. She locks the kids into the house because she wants to make sure that they're safe. She even goes and checks on them. Nothing like Annie, right?
Right.
She goes across the street and she lets herself in. And she is looking for her friends. And what does she do? She finds them. She finds Annie.
She finds Annie on the bed with Judith's headstone.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And that's the first time we see the headstone. So now she's freaked the fuck out.
Right. She's running around the house. She finds in the closet Linda's body.
She also finds Bob
and she finds
falling from the
I don't know, the cellar door.
Yeah, I mean
the
his body comes swinging down door? From below. Yeah, something like that.
And so she's fucking going fucking crazy. She finally comes face to face with Michael Myers.
Right, but before it's face to face, it's
butt to butt.
I don't know, but she's looking basically facing camera. And this scene, I'm just saying, cinematically and however they shot it, it's beautiful. It's like a great white shark coming out of the darkness. Like she's staring towards the camera or one way, and out of nowhere you see
it's like his mask starts illuminating. Because it's all white, and he just comes and it just appears out of the darkness.
That in movie history is such an awesome scene. Like, no matter how many times you remake the movie, that's one of those things you'll probably never recapture. It was just, like I said, it was a great white shark almost coming out of the darkness of the ocean. It was like, oh my God, he's right behind her.
You know what? You know what that scene is in also? Finding Nemo.
Is it?
Yeah, because I think it's Marlin or Dory.
I've never seen Finding Nemo.
Oh, it's one of the fish, and there's a shark that just appears.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, his name is Bruce.
Sure. Bruce is the shark's name?
Bruce is the shark's name, because you know what the name of the shark from Jaws was? Bruce. Come on, that was easy.
The shark in Jaws was named Bruce?
Yes.
Why don't I remember that? Really? I'll have to look into that. Anyways.
So they start doing this whole
Now, wait. Before, I just want to say one thing. Because that scene was beautifully shot and it was so awesome. But now, all of a sudden, Laurie, who's unsuspected, has no idea that her, crazy demented brother is behind her, which she doesn't even know. And we don't even know really that they're related at this point in time. But Michael, who has been very proficient at killing, all of a sudden makes the worst stab attempt. He's like, and misses her and barely cuts her on her fucking arm, barely.
But she books it and she runs across the street and she finds that she is missing her fucking keys.
Yeah.
So she's banging on the door, trying to wake up the kids. She finally throws a plant, like a flower pot, up to Tommy's window. And he's like, what? He wakes up all groggy, like, what?
Yeah.
She goes, open that door. Okay. And it's sleepily walking down. Meanwhile, Michael is walking across the street to get her, lets her in at the last minute. She locks up. She tells the kids to go hide. And she's barricading the door with her body. And next thing you know, she notices that there's this breeze coming in from the window.
Yeah.
And that breeze, she's like, fuck, he's in here. So she goes and she grabs her knitting needle and that's what she's using to arm herself.
Yeah, she's in the living room at this time. Can I go back just a few minutes to that scene where he tried to stab her? Because I want to talk about another very beautifully shot scene, which I don't think that we see that often.
Okay.
I just want to give credit where credit is due. After he makes this really failed attempt at fucking stabbing her, he just barely cuts her shoulder. She falls over the banister and falls down to the floor below. And the camera does this really awesome shot where it follows her down almost. And I don't know, again, for 1978, like they didn't have a whole lot of like the same type of technology we have now. And I just wanted to point out that scene was very awesome to have the camera follow her and fall down with her.
Well, I agree. That was a great scene, which is why I really give so much credit to the movies that are classic versus the modern ones. The modern ones are great. There are some really great ones.
Yes.
However, there is so much more that goes into, I mean, how do I say this? It's not about what movie did more, but there is where certain movies did a little bit more, right? So movies like this, you had to rely on proficiency with the camera. You had to, and accuracy and all these wonderful things.
Yeah.
Whereas now you have to be very meticulous with, with your CGI, and you need to be very, very detailed and, and skilled in another really great craft.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know if
I'm not taking away from it. I'm just saying that this wine is making me burp.
Is it? Don't drink it. Hey, did you? I know we told this is kind of a little bit out of order, but there was a scene earlier, I think, in the movie where they were watching Dawn of the Dead. No, was it Dawn of the Dead?
No.
No, I'm sorry. Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
That was earlier on, right?
No, they were watching The Thing from Another World.
The Thing, the kids were watching it, but there's also a scene at some point in time where someone's watching Night of the Living Dead, and they actually show the scene where it's like, they're coming to get you, Barbara.
I don't think so.
Yeah. That's the whole thing earlier on, because in Rob Zombie's remake, he has them watching a Bela Lugosi Dracula movie, and I thought that was kind of cool because he knew that they. I don't remember that. Well, I specifically remembered it.
I don't remember it. So, hey, there you go.
It's on the TV. It might have been before we get to this part of the movie when they first introduced Lindsay. But there's this whole scene where they show Night of the Living Dead, and they show the opening sequence where Johnny, that was his name, right? He goes, they're coming to get you, Barbara. And she's like, oh, stop it, whatever. I just happen to think that it was cool because when I saw the remake, Rob Zombie used Bela Lugosi and did a Dracula thing. And I thought that was really cool of him because he was like, you know what? They showed a classic horror movie. I'm going to show one in mine, but a different one.
Rob Zombie plays classic horror movies in all of his stuff. Right. All of his stuff. Yeah. Like, I don't think there's one that there isn't a classic horror movie, except for maybe, I don't know, The Fantastic World of El Sexorcist or something. What is that movie? What is that?
I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway.
I don't know. I just thought it was funny because I did remember that earlier. Okay, so where were we in the movie? Right now, Michael just gets stabbed in the neck with a yarn needle.
Oh, I haven't told them that yet. Michael gets stabbed with a knitting needle.
Well, we were just talking about how she was...
Laurie has a knitting needle as her weapon. And Michael comes out from behind the couch to try to get her, and she stabs him in the neck with the knitting needle.
Yes.
Then she's like running around the house, and, she gets the kids and tells them and locks them. Oh, she thinks she kills him. Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah. And so she goes and she gets the kids. And she's like, okay, we have
Lindsay
to call the cops.
and Tommy.
Yeah. And she goes, I killed him. But no, here he's coming. So she locks the kids, I think, in the bathroom, tells them to lock and not to come out. Yeah. And then she goes and pretends that she went out the window, but she hides in the closet. She hides in the closet, and not only hides in the closet, but ties the handles together. And so this is the classic scene where he's stabbing through the closet and she's down on the floor screaming. She grabs a wire hanger.
Oh yeah.
And creates a shiv out of it and stabs him again.
Right in the eye or something.
She's constantly stabbing him. Yeah. That's important to my theory later.
So I assume that he drops the knife at the time because I think she picks up the knife.
Yeah, so he drops it inside the closet.
Right, yeah.
And I think what happens, and sorry if my memory is being a little bit weird, I think what happens is she ends up stabbing him. And he falls.
Yeah, in the stomach or something like that.
And he's dead. Yeah. And so she crawls over him. She gets the kids and tells them, run to the Mackenzies, which is where in Scream, the first scene, Drew Barrymore's death, The father tells the wife, go to the Mackenzies.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Okay. So
now she drops the knife on the floor after she stabs him in the stomach.
Because she's grossed out by it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of a stupid thing to do. She doesn't realize she's thinking he's dead, but
not running out of there instead of calmly just standing there like I'm in shock. But everybody, trauma and everything affects everybody differently, and that's just true.
So and. Again, before the kids run out, we're seeing this famous, awesome scene where Michael just gets up.
Where he fucking
just sits up.
Nosferatu's up in the casket.
And first of all, if you see this movie as a kid, that shit'll freak you the fuck out.
If you see this as a kid in my house, you really try to work on your core strength to be able to do that and freak your sibling out. Sorry, Raul. So she's standing in the hallway and she's like so scared.
Well, when the kids run out of the house, Loomis is like walking around again, this Mr. Creepy man walking around in a neighborhood in a trench coat.
He sees kids running out of a house and screaming, and he's like, let me go chase one. But nobody cares where the kids went, right? He's just like, okay, let me just go.
Yeah.
And so he goes into the house, and right when Laurie is about to get stabbed, because Michael has come up behind her.
Mm-hmm. She pulls the mask off, actually, for a second. She pulls the
mask off because they're fighting.
Mm-hmm. And this is where we see, what's his name? Tony Moran's face. Yeah.
And then he kind of takes a step back, and this is where Loomis shoots him 6 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
6 times.
6 times, yes.
And he goes backwards off of the window that she supposedly had gone through and falls to his death again on the floor of the yard.
Right.
Loomis goes over there and his body is gone. You know what is there? An imprint of his body.
Yep, absolutely.
And blood.
Yeah. Well, there's not that much blood.
When Loomis goes to touch where the void is, there's blood on his hands. There's enough blood to see that there is blood on his hand.
That's only in part 2, though, I think.
Oh.
Yes, they continued the end of part 1 into the beginning of part 2, because that was the whole thing. Part 1 and part 2, there was a very big, significant use of the blood. There wasn't much blood at all, which again made the I feel like that the first one was scarier than part 2, even though there was more blood and gore.
Well, I think because in the part 1 you had you knew who the bad guy was and why the bad guy was, But the movie ends with Dr. Loomis kind of just staring off into the distance like, fuck, I'll get you next time, motherfucker. And Laurie's screaming her fucking tits off.
Yep. And then we hear some heavy breathing. This is the end of the movie here. That final scene, we hear some heavy breathing. And then the music starts to play and we just see Michael's house from the outside. And that's the end.
And that's the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. That movie was a shit. The movie is one that everybody needs to be watching. I absolutely love it.
I personally think the movie and the entire franchise should have ended right there. I think as an artistic entity, John Carpenter was absolutely correct in just feeling like that was a awesome story to tell, and then just leave it at that.
So instead, what we have is the sequel, which continues the same night of part 1.
Yep.
And Michael was shot 6 times, but is still alive. And, he does this whole thing. Mm-hmm. Then there is, and that's part 2. Part 3 is the season of the witch. No Michael Myers whatsoever.
Right.
Instead, it is...
It's all based around, I've watched
another transfer and an issue going on.
No, it has nothing to do with that. Season of the Witch has nothing to do with mental patients or anything at all. It has to do with these crazy, toy company that makes these crazy masks that they have the
return of Michael Myers is when Michael comes back.
Part 4.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Part 5 is the revenge of Michael Myers.
Yep. Now, part 4 and 5 feature
Jamie. But in part 4, Jamie is possessed by an evil entity or something. And
not
part
so much.
5, she's actually channeling Michael.
She's not possessed in part 4. In part 4, she's just a victim. But the one thing that I did notice, because apart from Laurie, Jamie Lee Curtis. Most of the people in the rest of the saga are not repeats, but the girl who plays Jamie is in part 4. She's in part 5. Technically, her character's in the beginning of part 6, but she's also the girl who plays Annie in both of the Rob Zombie remakes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so I thought that was funny
the
because
little girl that plays Jamie.
Yeah, she's a great actress.
Fucking awesome. She's so fucking awesome.
And so again,
she's so cute, just running around in like her little chucks.
Yeah, but I think it was a great move on Zombie to bring her back and let her play Annie, because it's in a way she's like okay, so if you look at how many people have been a part of the franchise, like Jamie Lee Curtis obviously is a major part of it, but this little girl deserves.
Donald Pleasence was in all of them up until
6. No, he wasn't in part 3. But he was in 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6.
Okay.
But yes, he's a major part of it, obviously. But I'm just saying that the girl who plays Jamie, the young girl, and then plays Annie in the remakes is, she deserves a lot of credit because she's in 4 significant chapters of the franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. So after 5 is the Revenge of Michael Myers, and that's when we see Jamie back. Then in 1996, there was a Curse of Michael Myers.
Yeah,
that is when Jamie, that's where I mentioned earlier that it was incestual rape.
Yeah, there was this whole, they try to explain the whole reason why he's alive. So, I don't know, again, I went down the whole rabbit hole.
Without any explanation, I think. And then,
which is why I say, one and done. One and fucking done.
Halloween H2O is 20 years later. Mm-hmm. And that is the one, is that the one Tyra Banks?
No, that's the one with, it's LL Cool J, and Laurie has moved to someplace in California, and she's now a teacher in a school.
That's right. That's where he gets.
She cuts his head. Yeah, cuts the head off in that one.
All right, and then Halloween Resurrection
is the Busta Rhymes Tyra Banks one.
Gotcha, and that's like a reality show kind of thing at the Myers house.
It's just, those two I haven't watched yet. I have not watched H2O and I have not watched Resurrection, but I have seen them in the past. I know they're not the greatest of the saga, whatever.
But then there's Halloween Remake by Rob Zombie, which in 2007, and I love that one.
Yeah, I liked it a lot too.
I love it. It's I don't love it as much as the original Halloween, but because you're always going to love the original, right? But it was still really good. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the backstory and the explanation.
Yeah.
But, they were good for different reasons.
He did a great job at trying to create a little bit more sense behind the backstory. You kind of
have this feeling for little
Michael, yeah.
And then there's Halloween 2, the Rob Zombie remake, which was in 2009. And it really, there are some good moments, and there's Danny Trejo in it, but it really was one of those
He's in the first
things.
one too, the Rob Zombie first remake as well.
And so really what it is those are the great parts about it, but it's not my favorite.
Yeah, there was a lot of weirdness in that one. And again, I think it was Rob Zombie trying to create more backstory and more sense. But I did notice when I watched part 2, the original part 2, that there was a scene that reminded me of Rob Zombie's part 2. However, Zombie used it as a flashback dream scenario, almost dream sequence.
Is that the hospital?
Yeah, her escaping from the hospital and Michael Myers coming after her. Now, the scene doesn't exactly play out exactly the same in both movies, but there is a major part of her being in a hospital and then leaving the hospital, trying to find a way out of there, and then Michael Myers following her. But all in all, I just be honest with you again, I feel like one and done. I love this whole saga, and I did go down a major rabbit hole watching them all over again. But and actually, I did enjoy some of the stupider ones, just for the hell of it.
Right. So you're always going to want to watch something campy,
right. But
I'm always going to want to watch Sleepaway Camp.
But I do feel like that this one really should have just been a one and done thing. Because I think, again, John Carpenter was right. He did this thing where he left it as a cliffhanger. And then in his head, he was going to move on and do entirely new story that had nothing to do with it. The Hollywood machine of wanting to have a franchise and remake and make more movies that make crazy money they were the ones that made this become a sequel and a sequel and a sequel.
Yeah,
and a
no,
sequel.
I understand.
Yeah. But I definitely feel like that this movie that we're reviewing right now was a complete entity from beginning to end, and it was a great ending. We don't know what happens. We don't know any connection about Laurie and Michael, which is where part 2
establishes that connection.
Yes, and that's where it went downhill because now we know this whole motive, and I don't know, like it just didn't connect as well. It was just a lot of like there was too much explanation and not enough edge of your seat kind of unknown horror parts.
Gotcha.
I guess.
Gotcha. Well, so I went down a rabbit hole myself, and there is this whole school of thought that. So there's 3 different. Well, I'll touch on 2 of them. So one of them is Michael is a representation of Laurie's id. So you have the id, the ego, and the super ego. These are all Freudian terms. Okay.
No, I don't know anything.
Your ego is really like your common sense, how people see you, all this, like normalcy, and your id is all of those impulsive things.
Are you saying ID?
Yeah.
Id.
Right.
Okay.
So the school of thought is that Laurie, because she is so repressed sexually, because she's so like just very, very just straight-laced, Michael is a representation of the things she wants to do. She wants to let loose. She attacks her friends for being promiscuous, right? He comes at her and she's the one doing all the stabbing. That is very phallic, right?
Okay.
So there's that. But then there is the other aspect that Michael and the shape is just a representation of fate. So do you remember when she was in school, she talks about fate?
Sure.
Right? Okay, so I have the quote here. Give me a second. So she says, Constantine wrote that fate was only somehow related to religion, where Samuels felt that fate was like a natural element, like earth, air, water, and fire. And that when fate, where there is fate, that is where man passes away. And so really, fate, when Michael is there, man passes away. So there's just a whole bunch of stuff. So maybe I'll do a rabbit hole episode on it. But there's this, it's really fucking fascinating about how all these different aspects that you can, like, do you remember when you were in high school and you read a book and they're like, okay, let's delve into it. And sometimes you're just like, it's just a fucking story. This is what it is. It's just a story. But there's so many ways that you can take it and so many dots you can connect to make it your own thing. It's fucking like so intense.
Yeah. I never thought about it like that. But.
Yeah, I mean, it's brilliantly done. And it's a movie that I'm always going to love. I'm always going to want to watch it. I haven't watched it in a long time.
Yes.
That's not true. I think we watched it like last year.
No, I don't think we did. We started, from what I remember, we went and watched the Rob Zombie remake and the part 1 and part 2. And I kept saying, I want to do this whole thing in its entirety. I think this might have been right around when we started the podcast too. Because I don't know why I went on the rabbit hole, but this is part of the reason why. Because I've always been intrigued on trying to,
connect the dots.
Sorry, I hit the mic. I've always been intrigued in trying to, connect the dots and see how, this whole saga really played out.
So Haddonfield, Illinois isn't real.
No.
But Haddon Clark is.
Haddon Clark?
Haddon Clark is a serial killer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This is like a whole nother rabbit hole we're going to go down right here.
Absolutely.
Okay, so who's Haddon Clark?
I'm not going to tell you because we're out of time.
We are. This has been a really good episode. It's quite long. I know sometimes we've been a little, some
loquacious.
Yeah, occasionally. Well, you know what? We try to do our best to
This is our only cute
Oh.
quality time together, so we talk.
I read somewhere that Haddonfield, New Jersey is actually a real place, and that's where Deborah Hill is from, and that's why they
That makes
named it
sense.
Haddonfield. Yes.
I wonder why they made it in Illinois. Because there are basements there?
Because
it actually was in California.
Right, but maybe because it just... Well, I wonder if... We'd have to like Google and see if this Smith Grove place, sanitarium, is a real place or not. Because I wonder...
I think I would have figured that out in my...
Well, you know what I noticed in this whole thing is that when Loomis calls the sanitarium a sanitarium, he actually calls it a sanatorium with an O and not an A.
So am I calling it a sanitarium and it's like for sanitation or something?
Yeah, see, that's the thing is I was confused as well too. But Metallica had that song Sanitarium, and they clearly sanitarium make,
Sing it to me. In the beginning.
I don't remember it. No. But what I do know is that Loomis, who had a British accent, called it a sanatorium. And it might be
He called it a sanitarium.
Well, in the closed captioning, which we just so happen to luckily have on our TV screen, it actually was spelled with an O.
Okay. Well, so here's the thing. I watch them with closed captioning because I'm hard of hearing. I can only hear out of my right ear.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, why? Did somebody like put some headphones on you and like play some really loud shit one day and all of a sudden you lost your hearing?
Actually, yeah.
Fucking asshole.
Yeah, like I can only hear out of this one. So that's why I have everything so loud all the time. And because I watch movies mostly when the kids are in bed or something, I have to have the closed caption on.
Well, let me know the name of this asshole who
His name is Stefan Syed.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to track him down. I'm going to kick his ass.
That is it for today. Thank you so much for listening and visiting us at the Ice Cream Parlor.
Yes.
I'm so proud of myself. I have a hard time saying parlor.
Parlor.
If you haven't subscribed, please do so. You can also check out our website, icecreampodcast.com, and you can sign up for the newsletter. You can figure out where you can listen to our podcast.
How do you spell that one? I know people might get a little confused.
They could probably look down on their phones.
But it's I Scream, right? Like...
You're not saying it any different.
It's the letter I and then the word scream.
ISCREAMPARLOR is Ice Cream Parlor.
Yes.
Our website is icecreampodcast.com. And you can follow us on
all of social media.
We're on I_Scream, SCREAM_parlor on Instagram, and on Facebook and Twitter, we are I Scream Podcast.
Yes.
You can also email us directly at icecreamparlor.podcast@gmail.com. And that's it.
Yeah, we love and appreciate the fans and the support out there. So please get involved. Tell some people about it. Send us some comments. Send us some emails. Let us know what movies we should be watching. Have we missed anything? Did we make some mistakes in our reviews? Let us know, right?
Yeah, tell Stefan when he's wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, but we really appreciate your feedback. Also, I would really appreciate maybe some ratings on Apple Podcasts.
Rate and subscribe, and
that's right.
Send us some feedback.
Absolutely. And our handles and all our information will be in the show notes. We are gearing up for our first guest, which is Buddy Chambers, and we'll be reviewing Alien with him. I'm excited because I don't think I've ever seen Alien all the way through.
Really?
Really.
It's more of a sci-fi thriller horror movie, but it's a great one.
Yeah.
And it should be fun. And
Can I pick the movie next week?
Yeah, of course. I mean, our movie selections are sort of random, but by all means, go ahead and pick one.
Can we do Ichi the Killer?
Isn't that what's his name?
Tokyo Gore Police.
Wait, what's the director's name? What's his name again?
You're asking me? I forget your name.
Hold on. It's the same guy who did the isn't it the same one who did Audition? Or no? Hitari Miki?
Hattori Hanzo.
Now I'm gonna sound
Tom Sekura.
All right. Well, Ichi the Killer.
Ichi the Killer.
I mean, if you want to do that one, sure, whatever. I mean, I like.
Actually, can we just cross a whole bunch of like mainstream ones off of our list and get into the nitty gritty good ones that nobody's ever heard of?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do here is get into some movies that I've never really seen or
Well, you
heard
haven't
of.
seen most of the movies we've done, except for maybe this one. And then you did that with gusto.
Yeah. I got you. But I mean, like, I'm talking about like really, I don't know.
All right, let's just stop talking before I watch the Serbian film next week.
You are not going to make it through that one. And that's not one we're ever really putting on the list. That's my vote, anyways. I would not want to review that movie. I've seen it one too many times. I'm not even supposed to have seen it twice. And here I am fucking like 3 or 4 times deep. And I don't want to watch it again. I would like to watch other movies that should be watched over and over again. Like this movie, Halloween 1978.
All right, we'll pick a movie and we will be right back. Thanks so much for watching and listening.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, bye.